And we got Esoterico 77 says, how would you respond to certain non-commemorators who argue that Canon 15 non-commemorators cannot then form their own synod?
Well, it never says anything. All it says is it doesn't provide directions one way or the other, technically.
Right.
I mean, remember, it's saying that you cannot depose somebody who is ceasing commemoration because their president of their synod or their bishop is preaching heresy condemned by the fathers and councils. If you want to know what you're supposed to do after that, well, then you got to read church history, right? Because the first thing you do is start appealing to other bishops and even other local churches to intervene and stop this. Well, if that doesn't work, and usually that did work a lot of times in church history. That's what we had ecumenical councils. People would get involved. Well, what happens? What happens when the heretics take over, and and then no one's coming to rescue you. All right. Well, in some of those cases, there are people that come to rescue you, but they do it in different ways. For example, when the Monophyite heresy took over parts of Palestine, St. Martin at the Lateran Council basically deputated one bishop or two bishops to go there and to start consecrating bishops for sees in Palestine because Monophylites had seized those sees. Obviously, they can't tell them to go under Monophylite bishops. That would be absurd. All right, and just like in Egypt, once the Monophysites took over that see, sometime after 490, permanently took it over. Remember, most of the Egyptian bishops sort of went along with it because there was this period after Chalcedon we had like an Orthodox patriarch, he'd get kicked out. They tried to put a Monophysite back in and what have you. Well, what happened? Well, the church eventually had to start consecrating new bishops and to send them into Egypt because 99% of the Egyptians simply just went into heresy and schism. All right. Remember, the bishops. So we had the church had no choice. If it has to make new bishops to send into Egypt. All right, we just can't say, well, stay under the Monophysite. I mean, it'd be absurd and insane to do that.
Yeah.
So the canon doesn't mention what you're supposed to do next. It just says, you are supposed to cease commemoration of people who publicly preach heresy condemned by the fathers and councils. All right. What is step 2? What is step 3? You need to start reading church history for that. And I've kind of gave them out before.
The basic schematic comes down to once you have established that you are dealing with false bishops and cease communion, it becomes incumbent upon you to find true bishops.
Yes. It's as simple as that, and it follows from